Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to talk about what's been going on with David Tennant and his recent comments. Apparently he was at an awards show recently. So he mentioned Kemi Badenoch and was very rude, very condescending, and basically said that he wished she would shut up. So Kemi Badenoch is the Minister for Women and Equality over in the UK. And it's very refreshing to have somebody who is in a position that looks out for women to actually be looking out for women. And to know what a woman is as well. Because we've seen people who are supposed to make laws that pertain to women, that protect women's rights, not even knowing what a woman is, and attributing those rights to men. So it's refreshing to have somebody who's supposed to look out for women, actually looking out for women.
The records are showing, or the reports are showing, that there is an increase in hate crime against transgender people. And I do think that is very strongly linked to a lot of predators exploiting rules that are made for trans people to carry out activities that those rules should be nowhere near. We see it with men exposing themselves in bathrooms. We see it with people trying to access single-sex spaces, such as women's prisons, when they have been convicted for violence against women and their victims are being forced to refer to them with female pronouns. That is not right. That is not right. So we have to make sure that we can sweep all that away. And when we do, life will get better for transgender people. But also, if, going back to your comments about, your point about me using the word epidemic, I will say again, almost an epidemic. And I talked about where the evidence was coming from in the previous question, but I'm not going to shy away from this. We cannot create a chilling effect on politicians and clinicians or anyone else raising concerns. That is not what our job is.
You've made statements that contradict some of the best available evidence, including the government's own data. For instance, the LGBT survey that showed that there's no evidence of trans in a way the gay, but substantial evidence that trans people were at twice the risk of being exposed to conversion practices. And you've also made these statements using inflammatory language that likens children and young people coming out as trans to the spread of a disease.
I've never said that. That is a lie.
Well,
that is a lie, and I think you should withdraw that statement. That is a lie. You are lying. You are lying.
I'm not lying to you.
You are lying. I have never ever used the word disease, and I think this is exactly what I'm talking about. You are making statements in the select committee that are untrue.
You've just called me a liar.
And I just remind the Minister that is unparliamentary.
Right. What she has said is not true. It's not true. And we have to use facts in this room. We can't just make stuff up. This is what I'm talking about.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. I just don't think that your facts necessarily...
When was that statement made? And where?
So this is the government's own data.
No. You said I used the word disease. When?
I don't know, did you?
Of course I didn't.
What?
And so you don't even know where that came from. Where did you get that from? Where did you get that from?
And that's what David Tennant doesn't want to hear. He doesn't want to hear people speaking the truth, challenging lies and disinformation and propaganda. He doesn't want to hear that. He'd rather we shut up. Well, no, that's not happening. This is what he had to say at a recent LGBT awards ceremony of some kind.
With a slogan, I attract the ire of the occasional online idiot. But I don't have social media, so even I have to be told about that by my brilliant wife, Georgia, who is the real engine behind anything we do. She educates me about empathy and understanding, and she has been a huge educator for me. But I suppose if I'm honest, I'm a little depressed by the fact that acknowledging that everyone has the right to be who they want to be and live their life how they want to live it, as long as they're not hurting anyone else, should merit any kind of special award or special mention, because it's common sense, isn't it? It is human decency. We shouldn't live in a world where that is worth remarking on. However, until we wake up and Kemi Badenoch doesn't exist anymore, I don't wish ill of her, I just wish her to shut up. Whilst we do live in this world, I am honoured to receive this. I'm thrilled to be here and to be a part of this night. Pride is very important.
And of course, It's always people can do what they want. They can live their lives however they want to. Everyone has the right to do that. On the condition that it doesn't hurt anybody. Well, guess what? Women have been hurt by so-called people living their lives how they want to, because they've been told that they're women, even though they were born male. Women have been hurt because of that, as we know, when it comes to our spaces, when it comes to our sports, when it comes to our privacy, when it comes to our basic safety. Women have been hurt, and that's why women have spoken out and said that this is wrong and this is how it's affecting us. When it comes to our legislation, all of that have affected women. So if the Minister for Women's Equality speaks out for women, that's her job. That's what she's supposed to do. It's telling the Minister for Women and Equalities to not speak out on behalf of women, to not speak out for women's equality, for rights pertaining to women. That's her job. It makes absolutely no sense. Just because you don't like some of what she has said, because it's not convenient for you and your agenda, that doesn't mean you have the right to tell her to shut up. If this was some right-winger telling a black woman to shut up, can you imagine? But because he's at the LGBT whatever awards, because he's a white liberal, he thinks he can go around making misogynistic statements with no repercussions. And at least he actually said how he really feels, because that's how a lot of these TRAs and people who advocate for women's rights to be trampled upon, that's how they really feel. They'd rather you shut up and just accept it. That's what they want. But thankfully, there are many of us who aren't going to be quiet and sit back and allow our sports to be ruined, allow our spaces to be taken away from us, allow our safety to be jeopardized, just to appease somebody who wants to identify as a woman and live a lie. Apparently he has a non-binary child. That in itself is a red flag. Most children can't even spell non-binary. How does a kid decide that they're non-binary? How do they come to that conclusion? So Kemi Badenoch has responded, Rishi Sunak has responded and condemned Tennant's comments. I mean, look at him here. This is the sort of person we're dealing with. I mean, that says it all. You will have to go through me. And this guy thinks he's all hard. So Rishi Sunak has criticised David Tennant, Tennant the actor. You are the problem. After he said he wished Kemi Badenoch would shut up because of her views on women's rights. The former Doctor Who star also said he wished the business secretary, considered a front-runner in the future Tory leadership contest, did not exist anymore. So in response, she said, I will not shut up. I will not be silenced by men who prioritise applause from Stonewall over the safety of women and girls. A rich, lefty white male celebrity so blinded by ideology he can't see the optics of attacking the only black woman in government by calling publicly for my existence to end. Tennant is one of Labour's celebrity supporters. This is an early example of what life will be like if they win. Keir Starmer stood by while Rosie Duffield was hounded. He and his supporters will do the same with the country. Do not let the bigots and bullies win. I mean, we've got enough issues over here in the US. And then we had people supporting David's comments, women, of course, supporting his comments. So Dawn Butler, he was a Labour candidate for Brent East, said, not all black women think the same. I agree with David Tennant. That's it. That's the tweet. And Kemi's response? This is the true face of the Labour Party. Keir Starmer says he doesn't want a toxic debate, but he is very happy to have Labour MPs do his dirty work for him and let people know they wish I didn't exist. These are the types of people who will form a government if Labour wins. And then she said that they're using transgenderism as a form of conversion therapy. Now that is something I'm yet to see activists address, this whole concept of transing the gay away. You know, how do they feel about that? Him saying that he doesn't want her to exist is more evidence that these people are always projecting. They accuse you of not wanting trans kids to exist. just because you speak out and say, this is wrong. Giving them these procedures, these hormones, all this medication is wrong. Apparently you don't want them to exist. But the reality is, they are the ones who don't want women who speak out against it to exist. They are the ones who don't want detransitioners to exist. That's how he really feels about people who don't go along with gender ideology.
But David Tennant, talking about the Women's Minister, the Women's Equalities Minister, who speaks on this issue, who has never said anything, by the way, anti-trans, all the nonsense he said at the beginning of that, where he's talking about how, you know, people shouldn't exist to be allowed to live their lives without harming anyone. No one's worrying about those people. What we're worrying about is when people living their lives as they choose does impact on women. You know, things like men walking into women's toilets and changing rooms, being allowed women's refuges, women's competing against women in sport, or being put in a women's prison cell along with women. I mean, that's what Kemi Badenoch and people like me are talking about. Yeah. How bloody dare he say, I want you not to exist and to shut up?
The reality is never going to go away. Women are being impacted by people being who they are, supposedly. Women are being impacted every single day, and women aren't allowed to speak out about it. Kelly Jane Keane decided to start a movement called Let Women Speak, because that's exactly what they want to prevent. Women speaking out and standing up for themselves. There was a recent event in Brighton where a group of women had to hide in a shop because of the trans activists basically intimidating them. They were hiding out in a shop and waiting for police to come and help them and escort them to safety. They're currently trapped in a shop by TRAs, including Sarah Jane Baker, after they chased us when leaving the Let Women Speak Brighton. And Sarah Jane Baker is a trans-identified man who served 30 years in prison for kidnap and attempted murder. He was previously recalled to men's prison for urging the crowd to punch a turf at a London Pride rally. Why is this person even out?
Okay, everyone is everyone's being peaceful and sitting down.
And apparently the owner of the store came out and said that she supports the TRAs, that she doesn't stand with Let Women Speak, the store where the women sought retreat away from those weirdos. She's come out and said she supports the TRAs. You can't make this stuff up. So that's what women have to deal with. That's the insanity that they have to deal with, because they don't want women to speak. They want women to shut up. So Billy said, in no other circumstances would the BBC be referring to a privileged white man wishing a female black leading politician and daughter of immigrants to shut up and not exist as a mere row.
She is trying to protect women's only spaces from biological men. 95% of trans women plus still have their penis. I've got 2 daughters. I do not want men like Eddie Izzard, who one day says that he's a woman, sticks on a short skirt, a little bit of lippy, and goes into women's toilets and women's changing rooms.
If you care about protecting women and girls...
What Kemi Badenoch is doing is she's trying to protect women-only spaces and women's sports. We know there's a problem, and I think anyone that disagrees with trying to protect these has got an ulterior agenda.
Absolute facts. Number one, it's her job to look out for women. That it makes sense that she's going to speak out in protection of women's sports and women's spaces. We don't want men pretending to be women in our spaces. And we have the right to voice that. We have the right to give our opinion. We have the right to give feedback when it comes to these silly policies and to say how they affect us. To say that we should be silent and not speak out when something affects us and impacts our lives is very misogynistic. It's saying that people need to not speak out when they're being harmed because I don't like what you're saying, I'm offended, or I disagree. Dawn Butler has defended David Tennant's vile attack on Kemi Badenoch, Dawn has a history of attacking ethnic minority conservative women because they don't think like she does. Here is Newsnight rightly calling her out for racism towards Priti Patel.
Just while you're with us, can we talk about another letter that you've put your name to, along with a group from Labour MP, from MPs from BAME backgrounds? A letter's gone to the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, accusing her of using her heritage to gaslight the racism of people from minority ethnic backgrounds and of black people. Just going through this letter here, you've essentially denied her of her own experience and accused her of gaslighting others. Is that not racist in itself? Why is Priti Patel's experience of racism any less than yours?
It isn't. And actually that's not the crux of the letter. What the letter is actually saying is not to use an experience to outdo another experience. And what the letter is saying is, please speak up and speak out, because we need Priti's voice in government. We need her to speak out. We need her to say there are structural racism, structural disparities that are stopping progress. And that's what the letter's doing. Because
the Equalities Minister, sorry, just to say, the Equalities Minister, right at the beginning of what she said, Kemi Badenoch this week, she said before even this review, this government confirms that, that being black, she confirmed that being black or from a minority ethnic background is a risk factor. This government is able to take race seriously, and you're accusing Priti Patel and her experiences of not being valid in that whole part of it. Why have you got to be selective about?
It's the same old, same old. If you don't align with their ideologies, you don't think the way they do, then they think they have the right to belittle your experience. They think they have the right to perpetuate the very thing that they're accusing you of, or to perpetuate the very thing that they claim to be against, which is racism, which is sexism. Like David Tennant is all about fighting for people's rights and their right to live how they want to live. But when it comes to women, he'll rather you shut up and just take it. Take your sports being ruined, take your spaces being taken away from you, accept the discrimination without complaining. When it comes to David Tennant, he'll rather women go away and not exist, who don't think the way he wants them to think. And then you have people who claim to be against racism, but they perpetuate racism themselves, and they can be the worst.
Who's allowed to say they've had racism?
That's not being selective at all, and that's exactly the opposite of what the letter's saying.
The letter is entitled "Shared Feelings Allow Us to Show Solidarity." You've accused the Home Secretary of gaslighting other minority communities, and you've asked her to reflect on her words. What did she say that was wrong when she talked about having racist abuse as a child?
It's a very common way of trying to deflect from an issue.
Because your needs are more important than the needs of others. Your experience is more important than other people's experience. The rights of men who want to identify as women is more important than women's rights. The wants and desires of men who want to identify as women is more important than the actual rights of women and girls. That's exactly how they think, and that's why they feel emboldened to put women down, to speak to women like that on a public platform. They feel emboldened to do that because they believe that everyone else is beneath them and they can speak down to people who disagree with their nonsense.
No woman, regardless of whether she's black or white, she's in government, she isn't, should be told to shut up by a man simply because he doesn't agree with her. Where have we got to with public discourse and debate in this country if we've got somebody of his celebrity and esteem saying that women should shut up? Why aren't men ever told to shut up and go away? I mean, it's so insulting. It also speaks so much to the absolute hypocrisy of the so-called progressive left. If you don't agree with me, then it's not just that you're wrong, but that you should shut up and disappear. So this man appears on a platform apparently advocating equality for all, and yet as a straight white man thinks that he can silence Kemi Badenoch as a strong black woman simply because she takes a different, more gender critical view. I think shame on him. I'm really angry as a woman about what this bloke has got up and said on that stage.
So I'm glad he's being called out, as he should be. The arrogance of the man. You're on the stage talking about equality like she said there, but you're saying that people in this particular group need to shut up. That doesn't sound like equality to me. They're the ones who want to dictate how you should respond, how you should even feel, and whether or not you should exist or speak out. So if you ask me, that's even more reason to not be silenced, because it annoys people like him. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. And God willing, I will see you in the next video.